Welcome back to the channel and to another episode of Let 'em Ride. It is May 26th. Tonight we have Game 3 of the NBA Western Conference Finals tipping off between the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Dallas Mavericks. Mavericks are a 2.5 point favorite with the over-under sitting at 207.5. Mavericks have taken a 2-0 series lead so far, winning both games in Minnesota by just 4 points combined. The Wolves have actually led in this series for 81 of the 96 total minutes played, despite being down 0-2. And I think that boils down to Dallas's two superstars have just vastly outperformed Minnesota's two superstars. Luka and Kyrie are combined for 57.5 points per game through the first two games. Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns, only 35.5 points per game. Statistically, number wise for these teams, though, it's been pretty even. Dallas is actually turning the ball over slightly more than Minnesota, but they hold the edge in shooting and rebounding percentages, specifically offensive rebounding, and that's where they're creating those second chance scoring opportunities. Dallas has trailed at the half of each of these games, and they've used second half comebacks to pull out the victories. Game two, they went on a 21-7 run in the third quarter, and they shot 60% overall in the second half. And I think this is where experience comes into play. Once you hit this point of the playoffs in the NBA, experience is a huge factor, and I think it's a huge factor that's like never really talked about for some reason. But you see this every year. You see these upstart young teams that come in. They're fun. They're exciting. They're fast. Uh, you know, but they run into that team that's more experienced at some point, and it kind of comes to a screeching halt. And I think that's what we're seeing with the Wolves right now. You got Luca on one side, who's been to the conference finals and failed a couple years ago, so he came into this hungry. He came into this ready for a bounce back. You got Kyrie right beside him in what's creating probably the best backcourt in NBA history. And Kyrie's been to multiple conference championships, and he's been to multiple NBA finals, and he's won the whole damn thing. Um, and then you look over at Minnesota, and I think Gobert made a Western Conference Finals appearance once with Utah. I think I'd have to dive into that. I'll look at that later. But other than that, this is kind of uncharted territory for most everybody on this roster, right? So I think that the experience is definitely winning out right now for Dallas. I think this is how they've been able to pull off these incredible second half performances in these first two games and take a 2-0 lead heading back home. Um, with that said, let's dive into a few trends here. The Mavs are 9-5 against the spread in the playoffs so far, and they've covered 5 of their last 7. You look at Minnesota, they have not covered in 5 of their last 7 after starting the postseason 6-0. So you've got one team that's trending up as far as against the spread. You got one team trending down. And I wanted to dive in a little bit deeper. Okay, so I saw two things that I thought were interesting. I'm going to share them with you guys here. The teams coming off of losses of 10 points or less and playing on the road, this would be Minnesota, are only 3-14 straight up, and they're 6-11 against the spread in conference finals games dating back to 2014. Not a good look, Minnesota. And this one I found interesting. I was curious, how do these teams play? How do they fare when they've lost their first two games at home and then they got to go on the road for game three? This has only happened 14 times in the history of the NBA playoffs. So when a team has gone up 2-0, this would be Dallas. They are just 2-5 against the spread in game three in the first round. Okay. When you move past the first round, they're 6-1. Specifically, conference finals, they're 4-1. So this is another one where it's like, not a good look, Minnesota. When you couple all these things in with the experience factor, with the fact that like Dallas, just to the eye test, just watching these games, they look hungrier, they look like they want it more. An advantage that I thought Minnesota had coming into the series was their down low presence. And after watching two games, it looks like that advantage is actually flipped, and it's to the Dallas side. I feel like Gafford and Lively they've controlled the boards and kind of dictated the pace down low, and kind of bullied Gobert and Towns. People like to throw Naz Reid into that. Minnesota's got like kind of a big three down low. Naz Reid's not a big. He's a big guy. He's a shooting guard and a big body. He's a phenomenal player. Don't get it wrong. I'm not saying that at all. But he's not your traditional big. And I think Dallas is kind of dominating the inside game, and then you have Luka and Kyrie. And Minnesota just has not been able to figure that out. They are getting destroyed on the pick and roll, and I don't know that they'll be able to figure it out. How do you stop both? Okay, you can slow down one. I don't see how you slow down both. So with that said, I'm leaning Dallas, but it's a lean. These are typically bounce back situations, right? This would be a spot where Minnesota should bounce back. Their backs are up against the wall. No team has ever come back from being down 0-3. You know this is in the back of their head, but they're a young squad, so it's scary to put my money with them. But it's scary to put my money with Dallas and keep betting against Minnesota's defense as well. So to me, this is just a lean. Um, it's a heavy lean, but it's just a lean. I'm scared to play it. I'm not gonna lie to you. I will never fake confidence in any of these videos. Where I am confident though is the over. I do think that over hits today. You look at that same trend, right, where teams have gone up 2-0 on the road, and then we travel back home for game three. The over is 10-4 in these situations in those 14 games, right? And then you look at just the 6 meetings between these two teams in general this season. It's the over is only sitting at 2-4 at first glance. When you dive deep in and you look at it, though, however, the 4 games in the regular season that all hit under, the point total was high. They're all sitting at like 230 or higher, and they very easily go over this number here, this 207.5. They came in under all 4 times in the regular season, but all 4 of those games, like I said, that hits the over here at 207.5. So they're actually 6-0 against this number. So I really like the over in this game. I don't think that the pace changes. I don't think it slows down all of a sudden any more than it has. I mean, these are both defensive teams to begin with. I think that the pace that we saw for these first 2 games, we can expect to see it again in game three. I don't think too much changes there. I think Minnesota, if anything, plays with a little more aggression, with a little more purpose in the first half, which is going to help this point total out more. Um, and I don't think Kyrie and Luka just all of a sudden die down. Um, I think the points will be scored. I don't think it's going to be a 120 to 125 type game or anything. But I think that we get over this 207.5 number pretty easily. Like I said, they've hit it in the first 2 games of the series so far, and then they hit it at all 4 times that they played in the regular season. So until they come in under this number, I'm gonna go over. I'm just gonna go ahead and go with the trend that we've seen so far. So that's my play for the day, guys. Over 207.5. I'm leaning Dallas -2.5. Good luck to everybody. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you guys make a little bit of money tonight. Um, I'll see you next time.